The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jacob Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You can nominate the sports volunteer you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals. My daughter has a soccer camp starting today. And let me tell you, Ben, I'm going to be taking notes.
Yeah.
You want that nomination? Oh, you're going to have to work for it.
Yeah, well,
I'm going to be there. I'm going to have my binoculars out. I'm going to be taking notes. Who's the best of the best out there?
Yeah.
And frankly, who favors my daughter the most? But I can't really. I shouldn't say that out loud.
But you can.
Ben, we were talking a little bit about this off the air. Maybe we bring it on a productive conversation. We can switch gears too. But the Tyrese Haliburton injury might have been the most predictable injury we've seen in quite some time. Maybe since Kevin Durant's Achilles injury, which you also could have predicted because of his calf issues. Or I mentioned Mehmet Okur. But there are others that have had calf issues, specifically in the playoffs, that feel the pressure. And I guess I'm not even saying that as a bad thing, but to show up and play and be there for your team and end up suffering a severe injury and then not being there for your team. You could say the whole reason that Kawhi Leonard has a championship with the Raptors is because of the situation that we're talking about, right? And Kevin Durant's Achilles went out on him when dealing with a calf injury. And I'm just curious, the Pacers should not have played him in Game 6 and 7. I don't think that they should have. And he's a team guy, and he's really good, but he wasn't helping them that much anyway because of how limited he was. I mean, he didn't score in Game 5?
Yeah, he didn't make a basket in Game 5.
He only played 20 minutes in Game 6 and then only made it 7 minutes in Game 7. I mean, I know that players feel the pressure to play in the biggest moments.
And want to play.
I know that, yes, they do. And I know that we emphasize those things. But really, he should not have been playing.
No, and obviously, hindsight is 20/20. But it's not like this is the first time this has happened.
But it was super predictable.
It was predictable, and it was the calf injury, and that's the one reason why people don't want you to play with calf injuries, because they turn into Achilles. And I don't know the science behind it. I don't know why it is. I don't know if it's. I mean, I get it's the same area of your body, but why does that?
Are you overcompensating? All those
whatever.
Things? Yeah.
But it happened, and as soon as it happened, it was just obvious. You know what I mean? So I'm with you, and I'm trying to pull up his stats of how he played in Game 6, and he was good. He had 14 points and 5 assists. The argument against it would be that T.J. McConnell was also really good in this series, and they've got Nembhard, and they've got Ben Mathurin. They've got some very good players that could step in, and do they win Game 6 without Tyrese Haliburton? I think there's an argument that they do. They're back in Indiana. OKC no-showed, so yes, maybe you could have. And then maybe if you even wanted to do that, you could have let him play in Game 7, and all those decisions are difficult to make, or you just don't play him at all. But yes, the point is, he is now out all of next season, and that hasn't been officially announced yet, but that's the timeline with Achilles. And then that first year back is difficult from any significant injury, and you can ask any star. So the Pacers' window for 2 games is now going to stretch to 2 years of not being able to be really competitive. Certainly 1 year. And again, 2 years from now, you're talking about a much older Pascal Siakam. DJ and I were talking about it before you jumped on. Like, if you're the owner, and we know their owner is pretty tight, is not a big spender, are you paying Miles Turner this offseason? Probably not. You probably just let him go because you know you're not competing next year. And that's really difficult to do, but you don't want to give him $30 million or whatever he's going to get on the open market. So that's where that gets really difficult for the Pacers, and then this window closes because you chose to play when your window was at its peak openness. You had 2 games, and if you win both of them, you win a title, and you did win one of them. So I get the difficulty there. I get the frustration, but yes, over the long run now, you've altered your franchise for the worse at a very high level.
And I do think it is an example of franchises being somewhat cowardly. I mean, we talked about BYU making the decision with Brandon Davies, even though it wasn't in their best interest. That, if anything, that was not a cowardly thing for them to do. You know what I mean? The easy thing for them to do was, well, let's delay this news for a month, and then we'll figure it out.
2 weeks and figure it out.
And they did not. But I think Donovan Mitchell, the series against the Grizzlies, what would that have been, 2021, and he was hurt, and the Jazz kept him out of Game 1, and he lost his mind. And then the Jazz played him again. They played him in Game 2, and he was terrible. And then that injury was with him for the remainder of the playoff series. And it is hilarious to me that, not hilarious, I guess, but could pick a different word, but that Donovan was flipping out about not playing because of his ankle injury, and then turns around a month later and blames the loss to the Clippers on his ankle injury.
Yeah.
It's like, that doesn't, how do you square that? You can't use it as an excuse,
right,
when the reason that you were still hurt in the first place is because you threw a fit about them making you miss Game 1. And they lose Game 1. They weren't going to lose that series.
No, they weren't.
He could have sat other games. That wasn't going to happen, but he lost his mind, and they fired the training staff as a result. He got his own guys involved, which, if you want to talk about when relationships started to fracture, I would argue that's when it started to fracture with Kawhi in San Antonio, when he goes outside the organization and gets his guys to look at his quad injury. And then next thing you know...
By the way, this is the same thing that happened with Luka in Dallas. Exact same thing that's happened with his weight and his body, etc.
It's when you let players run the show, they don't always have their health in mind,
right,
or the best interest of their own health. In this case, we reward competitive edge and players wanting to be there, and I like that as much as the next guy. But at some point, an adult has to be like, dude, you cannot play because you're going to damage yourself and as a result this franchise. Indiana got nothing out of him playing in those 3 games. They still lost the series, and now they're set back at least 2 years.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you.
And I would listen to the fact that Tyrese Haliburton is not the reason why they won Game 6.
He wasn't.
Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable take, even though you can say they won Game 6 and they had him. I'm not sure that those are necessarily linked together exclusively, that they wouldn't be able to win without him. So,
and even if they lost, so what? He's back to play next year. I mean, we're dealing with... okay, let me put it back to Kawhi's quad. If you play with a little bit of a pulled quad, you're probably not jeopardizing your career. This calf injury, again, I'd love to talk to a doctor or something. His career will never be the same.
Probably not.
Kevin Durant's career has not been the same.
No, and he's been a very high-level player, but
sure,
you're right.
But it has not been the same. Mehmet Okur's career was not the same. I mean, Kobe's career was not the same. And you can look at all these Achilles. And again, Kevin Durant is a success story. It is not the same as it was before he did it. It's just not one of those injuries that's worth it. An ACL these days is way less severe than an Achilles. You can come back pretty easily from an ACL, where that didn't used to be the case. The Achilles, it is not, and unfortunately for like Taylor Hendricks, the severely broken ankle, foot, whatever you want to call it, he's never going to be the same again either.
Right. It's going to alter him forever.
Right. So I would absolutely argue that Indiana should not have played Tyrese Haliburton.
I think what's interesting and where we just don't know is that, recency bias will tell us that this will be the injury people talk about forever when they're talking about the next time somebody's 50-50 or worse in the finals and whether or not they should play. Should you be out there? Should you not be out there? And we'll say, well, look at what happened to Tyrese Haliburton. The truth is, again, you mentioned it exactly. It already happened with Kevin Durant. He was in the finals, playing with a calf injury, trying to win a championship, and snapped his Achilles. The exact same way, with the same concerns going into the games in these must-win games with the window being wide open. And it changed somewhat weirdly the future of the Warriors, though they ended up winning a title again. But it really changed the future of Kevin Durant, who has not gotten back to the finals since then, right? Went to Brooklyn and was fine and put up huge numbers, and went to Phoenix and put up huge numbers, but hasn't been the best player on a championship team again since then. So I wonder if a year from now or 2 years from now, when X player, Chet Holmgren or Wemby or whoever it is a key cog on their championship team, and they're in the finals and they're dealing with an injury, and they say, it's a calf, because we're seeing these more and more. I don't know why there's more Achilles in the NBA right now. I have no idea why. I have my theories, but I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. Are they going to say, well, Tyrese Haliburton really set him back, so I'm not going to play? Oh, Shams is saying it is officially a Achilles injury. So will what happened last night change the decision of the next person to face the situation? My guess is no, because Kevin Durant's injury didn't change Tyrese Haliburton's decision. I would like to think it would. I don't think it's going to.
Well, it shouldn't be his decision.
That's very fair.
And that's hard when it comes to your health, right? Like, you want to take the decision on someone else's health out of their hands, especially in the most significant moments. But the answer to that is yes. And somebody has to go to Tyrese and say, you know what, you're not helping us anyway. That's the part that I bet would be hard. You and I talk about how coaches don't always like to have hard conversations with players. In fact, it's way less frequent in the pros than you would think.
Yeah.
College coaches are more than happy to scream and have some hard conversation because they almost like get off on it. You know what I mean? But in the pros, you can't lose your star players, right? And so oftentimes pro coaches don't have those difficult conversations. Thus, Jay Crowder just goes out there and heaves boulders at the rim
Right.
obscenely,
Right?
Because no one wants to talk to him about how he's actually hurting his team. Like, sit Tyrese down and be like, you're great. And I know the narrative is we can't win without you. But the truth is we can't win with you in your current state.
Yeah.
At very least, you're not helping us.
Yeah.
You need to sit this out, come back healthy if you come back at all, and we'll try to gut it out. We'll try to extend it. But you're not helping us. That Game 5 was such a standout to me. Like, that's a guy who can't play.
Yeah.
And again, to come back to BYU football, and I always use this example, but when Riley Nelson had a broken back and Bronco continued to wheel him out there game after game, it's like he isn't playing well.
Yeah.
He's not helping the team.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, well, he's our best option at quarterback. And it's like, incorrect. At 100%, maybe he's your best option. At 80%, maybe he's your best option. But what's going on here? He's actually, and no offense to Riley, again, hurting the team.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he wanted to play. I'm sure Bronco went to him and said,
yeah.
hey, dude, are you good enough to play? And he said, 1,000% yes. But you have to somehow evaluate, be like, I've got to do a risk-reward thing here, and this guy's not even helping us that much. And if he gets hurt with an Achilles, it's going to change his entire career.
Yeah.
And maybe he doesn't want to make that decision in the now because he wants to be out there for his teammates and all this stuff we love. But somebody's got to be an adult and tell him, listen, you're not helping us. If you take a game or two off, maybe you could, but you know what? Maybe you missed this one.
Yep. And we're better for it, and you're better for it.
Right. And Jim Everett missed the Super Bowl with the Giants, and Jeff Hostetler won one, and, I'm sure he's real bummed about that. But if you can't play, you can't play. And so I feel bad for Tyrese today. And this is usually behavior that we admire.
Right.
And I do admire his want to be there and to be with his teammates and be a leader and all those things that I think make him good for the Indiana Pacers. But where are they today?
Right. They're in a far worse spot.
Screwed
Yeah.
is where they are.
Yep, they're in a
Screwed.
far worse spot. It stinks. It's horrible. It's not fair. Injuries aren't fair. They are the worst part of sports, and they have hit the Pacers at the worst moment. So,
But if it's predictable,
right. The problem is, yes, there is the science there that says this is a possibility, and you playing out there, you are not at full strength, even though he has played well. He played well in Game 6. He played horrendously in Game 5. He played well in Game 6. He played well for 6 minutes yesterday and hit all the threes before he tore his Achilles. But again, we knew that was a possibility of playing with the calf.
honestly, Taylor Hendricks' injury was a freak thing. I'm trying to think. When Dante Exum wrecked his knee.
Sure. Every Dante Exum injury.
Every Dante. The shoulder one where he got spilled in international play, or
Yeah.
I think that was the same one.
Shoulder was here in preseason.
Is that what it was?
The knee was international play after his first season.
Yeah. That stuff, what are you going to do?
Right.
This was predictable.
Correct.
This people could see coming. Even bozos like us.
Yeah.
Who were like, oh, geez,
it was
he's
Hans and
really...
Scotty's big clip that's been all over the internet today, arguing last week about it. And to their credit, they did discuss it and the difficulty of it. But I don't think it's going to change anything. Unfortunately, I hope it does. I hope it would, because you would hate to see your team in that situation where they are eliminated for the next year and maybe even the next 2 years because of an injury like this, because a guy wanted to, I don't want to say be a hero, but didn't want to miss this opportunity. And I totally get it from Tyrese Haliburton. That's the human aspect of it. But you got to be able to see the big picture.
Are coaches and players guilty of overvaluing, or coaches and, I guess, front office staff, guilty of overvaluing players?
Yes.
I mean, they overvalue, as important as Tyrese Haliburton's role on the team is, they overvalued it. That he had to be there and there was nobody else that could make up that production, balderdash.
It also sets up a weird mental dynamic of it. As soon as he's not out there, you can't win.
Yes, it's an internal.
That's a
no,
real
that's a
flaw.
great point. Absolutely. No, the message should have been, hey, sit down and we'll go win it for you.
Yeah.
We got some good players here. We
Right.
can go win.
We can win.
And maybe we're one great player shorter than where we were yesterday, but that doesn't mean that the rest of the team all of a sudden turned into the worst team in the league.
So it's a tough spot. I feel for Indy. I really do. I understand why Tyrese Haliburton wanted to be out there and playing. I understand why Indy wanted him to play. The truth is the science said he probably shouldn't have been playing, and we've seen that now.
And Oklahoma City was the healthiest team in the league for the whole year.
They were.
And there is something to that. They did not have a major injury for the entire year.
Yep. And it's why, and again, going back in a conversation I had with DJ before you jumped on, I would probably take the field over OKC to win the title next year. Because, yeah, you're one injury away to these three guys, and they put a lot of miles on their body this year playing a lot of basketball. And, you saw how it wore out the Boston Celtics this season, and they weren't able to get back and flip that switch. I already think the Thunder have a difficult time flipping the switch. They're not a team that shows up in Game 6 on the road of a championship series to close it out. They had a hard time against the Nuggets. I think they're going to have a hard time flipping the switch next year. As good as they are and as much talent as they have and as deep as they are, I think it's hard to play with that feistiness and that hunger when you've already won a title versus before you have won it and you're trying to get to that goal. That's why it's so hard to repeat. So I wouldn't bet on the Thunder to win it again next year, even if they're by far the most talented team and have all these young pieces and conceptually could get better next year.
See, I would bet on them to win it next year. It's the year after I'd worry about.
I definitely don't think 3 years from now they're going to be the favorite.
No, because they're going to have to make some tough decisions on their roster. And this was not a Jalen Williams, Chet, Shea title. I think it was way more of a team thing than that.
Yeah, for sure.
And so eventually they're going to have to trim away at the team, which makes it difficult. But I don't see any reason, honestly, why they shouldn't be the most talented team in the league next year.
They are the favorite. I have no question. If I had to put money on one of the all 30 teams, the money would go on the Thunder. But if I could take the Thunder or the other 29, I would take the other 29.
Well, you just can't bet on everybody being healthy as much as they were this year. But you also can't bet on people getting hurt either. I mean, I would have – this is dreary, right? I would have bet on Chet getting hurt at some point. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? When
he did break his hip, right?
Earlier in the year? Yes,
Yeah.
he did. But how much time did he miss? He didn't.
3
a couple
months,
less
2.5 months.
Yeah.
It was back in January.
But he also stepped on his own dang ankle in the series and somehow didn't get hurt in the finals.
Yeah.
That should have ended his finals. I have no idea how it didn't. I thought he was. What was that in Game 3?
Yeah.
And I thought he was going to miss Game 4 and 5 for sure. Didn't surprise that he came back because those players can play on it until all the swelling hits and then all that happens. And he played for the rest of the series. So, I mean, I do think that there's some luck in that. But I don't see – I mean, is there a franchise that's really even close to Oklahoma City right now, honestly? And it's not,
Two teams just
it's
went
not
to 7.
Indiana.
2 teams just went to 7 with them. The Nuggets went to 7, and they're going to have to make some changes.
They're
as well.
not better than Oklahoma City.
No,
Okay,
they're
fine.
not.
They went to 7.
Yeah.
No,
I'm
happens,
with you.
but
I don't think there's a team that's better than OKC right now. I don't know if that necessarily means they're going to win the title.
But not even in the same wheelhouse. Unless you think Houston, this Durant deal puts Houston into a different level. I don't think it does. I mean, I guess they're a better scoring team today than they were yesterday, but I don't put them above Oklahoma City or even close. What does Minnesota do? I don't put Minnesota there. I don't put Boston there. They're a long way
Boston's out.
I still think unless Cleveland fixes what's wrong with them, I don't think they're in the neighborhood. They've got a Donovan Mitchell problem where he thinks he's too good.
Mm-hmm. No, Orlando's good, but are they as good as OKC?
Nope.
Probably not.
So major injury aside, I don't see why they couldn't repeat.
No,
honestly.
I think they absolutely can. Again, there's no question that they can. I just don't think that's the NBA we're looking at. It's not the NBA we've seen over the last several years. And everything you're saying right now about the Thunder is exactly what I would have said about the Celtics last year and said all year until Jason Tatum did get hurt.
I did too. I did too.
So.
And that injury, I think they probably would have beaten the Knicks. I don't know. They were down in the series, I suppose. But if Tatum would have stayed healthy. But Boston's just kicked the can down the road. They're the Niners in the late 90s where they're eventually going to pay the piper for all these roster moves, 2 supermaxes on the same team or whatever. Right. They were trying to delay it one more year to give themselves another bite at the apple. Oklahoma City has at least one more before they encounter this stuff.
Yeah, they do.
And so, I don't know. 2 years from now, I'm not sure. I'm with you on Boston. The window's closed. I mean, you just can't pay everybody. It's something that even like the Lakers that now have this zillionaire owner who's just bought a World Series in Major League Baseball, you just can't do that in basketball. Even if you want to, you just can't. Not anymore.
No, you can't.
And so what do? You have to have better roster management. I mean, I just don't think you're bringing up the salaries. I'm curious, what does next year look like for OKC?
They've got $177 million committed next year.
So they're right around the luxury tax.
They're right at they're above the salary cap, but I don't think they're quite to the luxury tax. So they'll still have flexibility to get better.
But then the next year after that is when all those extensions kick in.
Yeah, they don't. They are already at $150 million, and that doesn't account for Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren both making over $50 that year. And they're just so everyone's aware, they make a combined $20 million this year combined, and they're both going to make a combined $100 million 2 years from now.
That's your title. I'm telling you, that's your title. That those two players make a total of $20 million.
Yeah, exactly right. And they're your second and third or second and fourth best players.
And if that doesn't change next year, I don't see why that. I mean, they could, in theory, still go out and add another veteran if they wanted to.
Yeah, right. That's why I've said hell or high water. I don't care if you won a title this year or not. I would kick the tires on a Giannis trade. I know that seems like a major shakeup, but I want to keep my window open as long as I can. And I want to win as many championships as I can. And you and I are both saying right now, I kind of think 2 years from now, they're going to price themselves out of the ability to win a championship. So get Giannis and keep that window open as long as you can. And maybe that's too dramatic. I get it. I would understand the argument against it. But, yeah, this isn't going to stay open for 7 years. This isn't a dynasty.
Yeah, I could see the argument you actually flip one of those young players for a player like Giannis.
Exactly right. Yeah, you do Chet. You do your salary matching this year.
You pick out a Chet and Jalen because they're going to have to pick between those two players anyway at some point.
You're going to be making that decision in 3 years, and
right.
You're not making it to get a player as good as Giannis.
I mean, it's an interesting argument.
It's super ambitious. I'm not pretending it's, And if actually I had to make the decision and I was sitting there in the front office and I was saying, Presti, would I do it? Is it Presti?
Uh-huh.
Do I have the guts to do it? Probably not. But from afar, with no skin in the game, it's kind of easy for me to say, but I don't think it's actually completely unreasonable.
Oh, you move Chet out because you're going to have to move him eventually? The conventional wisdom on these situations has been just pay everybody and then figure it out later. I mean, that's what Boston did, right? Is just give everybody what you can and then figure it out later.
But the difficulty now is that it's so hard to figure out later because the trades become so difficult once you get over the luxury tax and once you get into the tax aprons that you can't take back more money. And some of the flexibility you used to have, you just don't have anymore. So again, it sounds crazy, but it'll sound a little less crazy when I tell you that Chet is going to be making $50 million 2 years from now. And it's really one more season and then kicks in next year. And yes, while Giannis is going to be expensive, his contract in 2026-27 is only $58 million. So the gap between what you're paying Chet and Giannis might be $10 million. But how much better of a player is Giannis than Chet? It's worlds apart.
He's just much older.
He is.
But now the long-term planning part is less significant than he used to be.
Right. Because you're not having him through his prime. You're not going to have Chet through his prime, probably.
No.
Because you can't afford it. If you want to keep your window open, you're going to trade him for younger pieces.
Or an older piece. Yeah, that you get more out of right away. I mean, they're going to have to decide who's better, Jalen or Chet. It'll be interesting to see what they do. Yeah. But I think next year they won't make the decision. They'll kick it down the road and try to do it again. And I think they should be the heavy favorite.
And they'll have a bunch of guys coming off the books in 2026, 27. So next summer they'll have teams options on Isaiah Hartenstein and Lou Dort and Kenrich Williams. And Cason Wallace is going to be getting out of his rookie contract. It's where you start to get, difficult about those situations. But those guys helped you win titles this year. That's the problem. You're replacing guys that were helping you win the title, so your team is not going to look anything like it did this year, even if it's the same three players at the top. Look, the same three players are at the top of Denver's title when they won, and they can't win anymore because it's actually guy 5, 6, and 7 that really helped you.
That helped them win.
Yep.
All right, live from Cedar Hills Golf Club. We're out here for the BYU Football Media Tournament. Big thanks to them for having us out. We'll have more coming up straight ahead. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, bro. You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now, it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
Your show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
G-Bangs! G-Bangs!
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Woo! Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.